Yo, what's going on, man? This is your boy Adonis. I'm on with You Know I Got Soul. Make sure you check the page out. Everything they got on there is top notch, 100%, and they got all the answers that you're looking for your stars and your celebrities. So keep it locked, man. One.
Yeah, I just want to start out. I read that you originally started out working with the group Black on their debut album. Can you kind of just talk to me about that whole experience and how it came about?
Well, I was in a singing group that was trying to do a production deal with Let's Die. And so during that time, we were performing at this club, and Left Eye would frequent that club with the girls, and my group and that group, became friends. I was the only one that expressed an interest in being a producer and songwriter for my group. And one of the girls' dad in their group was the vocal producer for the album. So I guess he took a liking to me. His name was Danny. He took a liking to me, and he invited me in their sessions, and he let me vocal produce a couple records on the album, like teaching me how to, he let me vocal produce a couple of records on the album, and that's how it started.
Okay, cool. And unfortunately, we lost one of the members of Black, Mattina not too long ago. So,
Right.
what's your favorite memory of her, or what do you remember about working with her?
Just the craziness. Like, she was definitely the character of the group. Funny, always cracking jokes. Really, really, really creative and brilliant with songwriting. She kind of, most of the records on the album. She was a very talented songwriter. And, I was really sad to hear that because we all were kids growing up in this game here, and it kind of shocked me. So I wish her family well, and I'm praying for her son and everybody that's involved.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your work with Bad Boy. You started out working with Bad Boy, so just talk about that whole experience and being around Diddy and everything.
That is probably the biggest learning experience I've ever encountered, in my whole life. I was going to say my career, but in my whole life. I think the knowledge that he passes on just from you being around him is valuable to what you will do in this music industry. And for him to take a chance on a kid that had never put a record for nobody professionally, like that speaks volumes about, his his brilliancy in this music industry. So I really appreciate him for that. But those were the greatest, moments as far as learning that I've ever had in my career.
Yeah. And, I got to ask you this because you were involved with both of these songs, and this is one of the questions that I always like to ask the fans because it's very close. So I guess I'll ask you, since you wrote both songs, what do you think is the better song, I Need a Girl Part 1 or Part 2?
I think that's difficult. That's difficult to say. I think because we wrote both songs at the same time.
Yeah.
Like in the same session. Wow. I don't know. I guess it's kind of like choosing which one of your kids is your favorite, your son or your daughter.
Yeah.
I'll say both for different reasons. I'll say the first one is better because it was my first time hearing the song I wrote on the radio. The second one was better because but the second one beats the first one because that one is the one that everybody really remembers. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of both of them have their special place in my heart for those.
Because you had a lot of success, what would you consider to be your greatest success? You had a placement on Jennifer Lopez's album, which, at the time she was huge. I Need a Girl Part 1 and Part 2, consecutive hits, which we don't really see nowadays. You had the huge song with Usher, which was a Grammy Award-winning song. And then you also had a lot of placements in 2005, 2006, and 2007. So what would you consider to be your greatest success?
Probably the Usher record.
Okay.
More so because that was by far the longest number one I've had. Like that record was number one for 14 weeks. So yeah, I was saying My Boo is probably the greatest success. Not only because, like I said, it was the longest number one I had at 14 weeks, but Usher's album subsequently went on to sell 25 million records worldwide. So I think that coupled with the fact that you know, the album at one point had, you know, it had stalled, and then they put it out, and you know, it went on to do what it did. So it kind of makes me feel like, you know, I was vital in the record sales of that album. Maybe not the whole thing, but you know, for the part that I played a part in, I think that really, you know, speaks volumes for, you know, what one record can do for an album.
Yeah. And, you know, I've had a chance to speak with some of the people who you've worked with, Bryan-Michael Cox as well as Kendrick Dean, and they both mentioned that the writing process when you guys work together, it all starts out with a conversation. So can you just kind of talk to me about that process?
Yeah. A lot of times artists will come in and they'll be going through something, or, you know, they'll be on the phone or be on the internet or whatever, on Facebook or whatever the case may be. And, you know, we'll just start talking about a real situation that they're going through. And in the middle of it, there are certain things that they'll say that I'll be like, oh man, that's good for a song. So, you know, of course, with their permission, I'll ask them, like, you know, let's write about that. You want to write about that? Yeah, come on, let's write about it. So I'll go in the booth and, you know, I write about whatever it is, and it becomes more real to them because it's something that they're going through. And a lot of times, different situations that you go through are the same. The key to songwriting is to write something that is personal, but that the entire world can understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point. You want to speak to the fans or the multitude. So I think that those situations, real situations, always resonate more than fabricated ones. So that's why we do it that way.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed about you is that, you know, of course we know you as a writer, but you've also had a hand in producing a lot of songs as far as making the tracks, such as the Sierra song and some other ones. So just kind of talk to me about how you develop those skills, because a lot of writers, they're only good at writing, but they don't really go into the production side of things.
Right. Well, I think, okay, when I first started working with Puff, like Mario Winans and Rodney Jerkins, and you know, this guy in Atlanta named K-Fam, I used to love the way that they would come up with, you know, tracks, because they all were musical first. Like Rodney plays piano classically, Mario Winans plays every instrument known to man, K-Fam plays piano classically, so they all were really musicians, but they knew how to craft beats. And so I got to a point where, you know, I wanted to stop asking people for music. I wanted to, you know, because I play piano myself, so I wanted to figure that out as well. You know, it's kind of like if you're on the football team and, you know, Chris Carter can catch balls with one hand. If you're Randy Moss, you can catch balls with two hands, but you want to learn how to catch a ball with one hand, just because that's an added skill. And so that's where it came from. You know, I just wanted to add, you know, another skill to my creativeness, so that in the event that we can't get a producer in a session, or in the event that we're in a session and the artist wants to create a brand new song on the spot, I don't have to call another guy to come in and do something that I can do.
Yeah, cool. And as far as the state of R&B right now, sales are really low. You know, has that affected you as a writer at all?
Yeah, it has. It has, actually, especially for me, because I'm a volume writer. So, you know, I may have 3 or 4 songs on an album versus another writer who may have 1 song on the album, but that's one of the singles. So, you know, for me, I'll get like the 3rd single or whatever, but I have 3 or 4 songs on the album. So the album sales really generate a lot of money for me. So now that album sales are not selling, then of course you have to get proceeds. You know what I mean? So it affects you in different ways. And even the guys who, you know, were getting singles, now that 1 song that they were placing that's the single, they're not even getting that placement now. You know, so you just got to be creative about the way that you get on these albums, and that you sell your records, because it definitely affects the way that the label looks at it, because records are not selling the way they used to.
Yeah. And you know, I've spoken to Brian as well as some other producers, and they've mentioned now that instead of chasing placements, they're more so into developing artists. So, is that something that you're looking to doing as well?
Well, yeah, that's, you know, it's interesting you asked me that, because right now we have an artist that Jordan, She's 1,000 followers on Twitter. She has, 2 or 3 videos on YouTube that are at 200,000. So, it's something that we really are developing. I think she's an amazing talent. She's a songwriter as well. She co-wrote the Chris Brown record with me, the 2012 record that's on Fortune. She's Grammy nominated today. I want to say congratulations to her.
Yeah.
So, I'm very excited about what we're doing with her. And we're just ready to shock the world. Like I think it's time for new artists to come through. Every so often, every decade, every 7-8 years, new artists come through, and a few of them really have staying power. And I think she's one of those that will have staying power.
Yeah. And what is it about her that makes you want to work with her? Because you work with so many big artists already. So what is it about her?
I think it's her independence with her creativity. She doesn't really need me to write records with her, but the way that we, create is incredible when we create together. But I can give her music and she can do it on her own. That's one thing. And then secondly, she's an unadulterated star. Like, there's no question about it. There's no, and maybe that should be the first thing, but there's no question about, her superstardom. Like, it's really something that I've never seen before from somebody who hasn't been trained in media, training, or has had, X, Y, and Z from, a label and teaching and blah, blah, blah. It's just naturally in her. And that right there was the most important thing to me. Besides the fact that her voice is beautiful and she's pretty and all of that, it was the fact that she doesn't need me to make records, to make hits. She doesn't need me to do that. And she's a bona fide star.
Yeah. And, if I could, I have a list full of songs that you've done throughout the years, and if you could just give me the background on it, or anything you remember about writing or recording the song. The first one is the song that you did for Orion, Take It Slow.
Yeah, so me and Makiba wrote that record together. We had already been doing some work for B2K, and Chris Stokes expressed that he was working with Omarion's little brother. They brought him in the studio, and we did that record right there on the spot.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. And then what about the B2K song, One Kiss?
That was a record that me and Jonte Austin did together. I had a track that, actually what happened was me and Jonte wrote another record together for something else, and he found out I did tracks. So I had a track, I gave him the track, he wrote it. Chris Hicks at the time placed the record for us. And then I went out to record it on B2K, and that's how I developed a relationship with them.
Okay, very cool. And then what about the Mariah Carey song for the record?
That was actually a great experience. That was me, Bryan-Michael, and Mariah. So we all sat down. We had been working with Mariah for about a week, just coming up with different ideas. And, Mariah's a star who probably talked about the most, and there's a lot of rumors about it, blah, blah, blah. So she wanted to at least set the record straight. So that's how the record came about. She just wanted him to know, like, listen, this is really what it is, blah, blah, blah. She's a brilliant songwriter as well. Like, the way the melodies she chooses, the way that she goes about writing her records, like, it was an astonishing process just being involved with that record with her.
Yeah. And then, I got a couple more, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
The song that you did for Genuine, Last Chance.
Yeah, that was me and Bryan-Michael. We were working with Genuine, and we had done a few other ballads. And Ira DeWitt, who was his label head, expressed that she wanted to go with a ballad as the first single. So once she said that, of course, me and Brian, over the years, a lot of our singles have been ballads. So we knew exactly what, she was trying to ask us to do. So that's how we came up with that record. It's just basically a man pleading for his last opportunity to show, a woman that he really is serious about being with her, and that's how that record came about.
Okay, cool. And then just a few more. This is the one that you did for Mario Winans, Never Really Was. Talk about that one.
Yeah. Mario had a beat. And it was that sample, the beginning of that sample, so he just showed me the sample first, and he was like, yo, I think I got a verse So he showed me his verse. I wrote the hook. Me and him wrote the second verse. That's how that record came. It was a lot of these joints are just like, you know, you there and we talking and, you know, they just come out. You know, it's not even really that much of a struggle.
Yeah.
Because it's real life situations, you know.
Yeah. And then just two more. The song that you did for Faith Evans, Don't Cry.
Oh, man, that was one of my favorite records right there.
Yeah.
Faith and Camila from 702, they were in the studio coming up with verses and like a melody. And so I came in with the hook and the bridge. Well, actually, if you listen to the record, you can hear me singing on the bridge.
Yeah.
So you know that was a great process too. Faith is another talented songwriter that I enjoyed working with. It's very, very, very interesting working with her. After, you know, growing up listening to her and then finally being in the studio with her, it was incredible to me.
Yeah. And then the last record I wanted to ask you about is the song that you did for Brandi. I think this is an unreleased song. The song "Cry."
Oh yeah. At the time, Brandi was going through a management change, and so her management that she had procured was also managing Bryan. So they wanted her to go in with me and Bryan. We went in with her in at Track Record in Los Angeles. And it was during the time that she was going through the whole thing with, you know, being married or not being married or whatever. And, you know, so it was a very vulnerable time for her. So we just came up with something that we felt was indicative of the time period that she was going through. We were supposed to do her whole album at the time. You know, we spent a lot of time with her. So those records that came out of those sessions are still some of my favorite records that I've worked on, even though they probably have never come out. I love those records, though.
Yeah. Well, how does it feel for you as a writer when you invest so much time into working with an artist in the studio, and then because of label politics and such, the songs don't come out? Like, how does that make you feel as a writer?
Well, it doesn't bother me because you have to understand, because they don't buy it, don't mean it won't get sold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of records that I've written. I may have written it for Joe, and I ended up placing it on Mario. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, because it's not a waste of time, because it's still intellectual property that can be monetized. So you just have to, you know, like I said, if they don't take it, you just have to be creative about who else you can send the record to. So it doesn't really bother me. I know for some people it bothers them, but, you know, it doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, cool. And you know, we haven't really heard you on too much aside from a song that you did for Chris Brown. So who else are you currently working with right now?
Well, I'll tell you the things that I've done in the last year. I did 2 records on Mary J. Blige's album that came out, My Life 2.
Yeah.
I did the Fa La La record for Justin Bieber and Boyz II Men. I did that record.
Yeah.
I did a record on Joe Donis' album that came out earlier this year.
Yep.
I also did another Bobby V that came out earlier this year. Jin Akanashi, Japanese artist, I did his single, you know, on his album that came out earlier this year. And as of recently, I've been in the studio with Omarion. He's doing another album with Maybach Music Group. I did like 4 records on Star Shell. She's signed to Mary J. Blige's label. Kayla Smith, she's signed to Interscope as Kenny Smith's daughter. I did 2 records for her. You know, and a lot of the other things I've been doing have been either video game related or you know, television related. So, you know, I've been trying to add that into my repertoire as well as play some records. So, you know, it's been a fun time for me this year.
Okay. And finally, I just wanted to ask you about something that you and a bunch of other writers started out a couple years back, and that's Noticey. What happened with Noticey?
I think the guys kind of, you know, it was a spoof. It was fun when we did it, but I think, you know, we all just kind of, you know, it's just for fun. So if that ever comes up again, we'll definitely, you know, put another record out for our fans. You know, we can't believe we had actual fans.
Yeah.
For a spoof group, but hey. And man, music is the language of generations, man. So, you know, who knows?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that's all that I had for you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh no. This was a great interview, man. You were very informative. You know, as far as the questions you asked me, and you knew a lot already about things that you wanted to ask me. So I appreciate that. It made the